In today's episode, we're going to see part 3 of animating a shot in Blender. I'm Luciano, and welcome to the adventures of Lollipop Man. This episode is sponsored by me. Use the code below to get 10% discount on any of my products. What's up, everyone? I'm Luciano, and welcome to the adventures of Lollipop Man. In part 3 of animating a shot in Blender, we're going to go through probably what I would think it's one of the most important parts of understanding about setting up your settings so it's as comfortable and as standard as possible. It's a very dense video. I think it's probably the most boring video of the entire series that I'm doing. But at the same time, it might be one of the more key parts if you're coming from other packages. And then we should be ready to finally start animating. I know, right? 3 episodes and we still haven't put a single keyframe. It's kind of crazy. But this stuff, it's being improved by the day by the animation module from the Blender developers. And so keep in mind that as I record this series, things will change and will improve because I'm always using the latest build. And so obviously if something has changed from a previous video into a new video, I'll let you know so we're on the same page. So before we go into the video, go hit that subscribe button and the like one as well. Put the little bell because this helps me grow my channel, and with that I'll be able to keep on creating more videos and dedicating more time to it. Also, I have an announcement to make. Actually, I have 2 announcements to make, but we'll make them at the end of the video. So let's get on to it. Okay, next, we need to figure a few things out. We were saying before we added this audio, and there's one thing that needs to happen is that when I reproduce it, it has to play at 24 frames per second so I can hear the audio. And so I need to make sure that under playback, here at the top in audio, it says AV sync. So it's important to keep it in AV sync because that will make sure that you're playing back at 24 frames per second and hearing the audio. Obviously, if it's too slow, it will skip frames in between, but you'll still get the right rhythm. And so on the playback and performance side, one thing I like to do is go into post mode and then hit the, what's it called? This one, I never remember what its name is. Render properties. You should have like a render properties like title here. Anyways, and then go to simplify and turn that to 0, even if it's off, doesn't matter. And then right click the simplify tick and add it to my quick favorites because that's gonna change your life. So you press Q now and you get simplify. And so you'll see that it takes a little bit into moving and doing things around with the characters or the shape or the character itself, right? It's kind of like not super fast. And if I go use simplify, then just like starts moving like butter. So it's very, very useful. So I usually tend to switch between both of them to see, like, to make a play blast or render and then go back to simplify so I can work faster. In this case, other things that would be interesting because of this rig particularly is to turn off the stuff that we're not gonna be using or seeing. Like, I don't think the rocket would be necessary or the blaster itself, the helmet maybe. And also there's a thing with transparency that's not working quite well. So I could probably animate most of it without the helmet and then turn it on and adjust if I need. So the leg band, the rocket, bam. And so we got the girl ready to go in the ship. Other things that we should take a look at, it's some of the preferences. So we're going to go to the preferences, and one thing that's always useful is the dynamic parent add-on. In the case of how I parented her to the ship, it wasn't necessary because I reckon I'm not gonna turn on and off that parent, so it would be useful still, but it's more useful for the other things that are gonna happen in the shot. Then what other add-on we need? Animate, that I'm going to use later on. Animation layers, that I'm going to use as well. Onion skin tools also. And so, yeah. So under animation, something that I do need to stress is that you turn on only insert available, which will only auto key objects and bones and anything that already has a key. So by default, what Blender does is if you turn on auto key, then it keys everything no matter what. You just move something and it keys it. So yeah, that. And then we need that, that's okay. And then I'm gonna turn my default interpolation into constant so I can do a blocking with stepped keys, which you can change later. I think you can change it here as well. Nope, there used to be a time that they had put it here and they got rid of it, sadly, because it's a good idea to have it handy. You want to change those things often. Then negative frames we don't need. So let's go different things that we might need in animation. None of this should be too terrible. I like to change the temporary windows to full screen. That way it will turn off the current window. If you're rendering or doing, even if like a quick preview render and you have like Eevee or cycles on your viewport, and then you have the default one, which is popping up a new window, it will basically render the window below and the window on top. If you switch it to full screen, it will replace your entire screen with a new one window and then use all of your resources there, which is much better. And so one of the things that I like to do is to throw play blasts, and I throw them with Workbench, which is way faster than anything else basically, but it's still like taking resources if it's displaying in the viewport. Then under viewport, there's really nothing very important we need to see. You can probably turn down the anti-aliasing, just because that's gonna make a little bit of an impact in performance if you have slow rigs. So let's just do that. Then editing should be fine. Animation, this one is an interesting one. By default, it keeps the range, but you can frame stuff and tell it to leave margins around. So if I go into seconds, it will leave 1 second after and 1 second before, or half a second, for instance. So if I go and click this keyframe that I created, then if I go here now, frame, go to current frame, it just leaves that amount of space. If I go to keep range and just change it and then do the same, it just keeps the range itself. It doesn't change it, it just moves around in the timeline. And so it's cool to test it out. I think the idea of a few keyframes forward and backwards, it's okay, but depends on how they're distributed. And seconds also works. So if I now want to select this one and then view current frame, then it leaves 1, 2, and then 1, 2, and then it stands there. It's cool to know that you can change these settings and figure out the best for you. I think I'm gonna leave it at half a second. So that's 12 frames each side, should be good. Add-ons, we already said which ones that we like the most. You probably want to also use the X picker. I'm creating a picker for her face, which I'm going to give out for free in the Gumroad as well. And when it's ready, obviously. And then, yeah, that's it. Then let's go to input. So I don't use a mouse, I use a tablet. So continuous grab, it's pretty bad when using a tablet because basically your mouse will end up here. What it does is that I can grab this, for instance, and until it doesn't, like until I go to the end, it will go back to the beginning of the screen, and so you can keep on going. So basically, even if you run out of screen, you can keep on moving your mouse doing whatever task that you were doing. Sadly, with the pencil, that doesn't work. It just goes bonkers. So yeah, because my main input is it's a pen, it's usually more of a pain in the ass than anything else. Emulate numpad, it's something that I really appreciate because I don't have that problem with the layers where they subtly hide it themselves. So emulating numpad helps me just have camera changes there, so it's not a big deal. So navigation, auto perspective, that's cool. Orbit arrow selection is something that I appreciate in some cases, right? Being able to rotate around whatever you have selected. Then, well, nothing here is really important besides the smooth view. I like to have it in something like 10. So when I change the camera, it's more like a flick because 200 is too much. Maybe even 50 could be possible, right? So you get the idea of that you're flipping somewhere, but also 0 works really well. then key map. So I told you about the tab for Pi menu. Also, I like to have select all toggles, which is basically the A button to select and deselect. In the previous Blender, we had this behavior where you press once and it will select, and you press the second time and it will deselect. Whether now you press once and it selects and we double tap to deselect. And yeah, I don't find that so comfortable anyway, but it's a matter of choice. Also, the extra Pi menu shading. So with Z, by default, you get these 4 options. And if you turn that on, with Z, you get some extra options, which I appreciate, like that, like this X-ray on the bones as well, which I also use with Alt Z. And I use this a lot. Also helps you, like you can toggle overlays directly from there, which is appreciated. The rest of the stuff, it's pretty decent. I wouldn't complain much about it. I like to have the hotkey for the camera switching. It takes a little bit of adjusting to it, but it works. It's kind of like the space bar in Maya. It makes sense the way they organized it, but it's not the most useful way. Like bottom being down, straight down, makes sense visually, but it's the one that you're gonna use the least in the entire menu. But front, it's clearly one of the ones that you want to use the most. So they could have gone as, couldn't imagine as this was looking from up. So you could have had front, left, right, back, and then top and bottom. That would have made much more sense. In any case, it works, you get used to it. System, we want to have as many undos as we can. So we just go undo steps into 256. Then we got, this is all fine. Saving, we're just gonna pump this to 1 minute, so every 1 minute Blender would save. Then we don't want to load UI. If you already have your nice UI with your nice buttons and your nice workspaces and stuff like that, you probably want to turn this off, so when you open another file, it doesn't screw with it. Then the recent files is okay. The save versions, I usually turn them down to 0. Because I don't like the naming, the way it names them, and it makes a mess. I always get the autosave to save my ass, and I make sure that I save incremental copies every now and then, which I'd like to see an add-on for that, to just replace Control S with save incremental. But yeah. And then this is okay. This should be fine. Unless you have a specific image player that you want, you can choose them from here. So yeah, because I don't know how to make this work, I usually stick to the Blender one, and the Blender one works fairly well, to be honest, to review your render right away, view animation. The only thing I used to remember, it would play audio, and I think it does when you output a movie with audio, but because this is outputting an image sequence, then it's not doing it. So let's just go and set that up right away. It's 1080p, so with just 50%, it would be nice for a preview. And I'm going to change to my FFmpeg and choose QuickTime, default quality, which is okay for what we're doing, which is basically reviewing our animation. And we can just go back to our folder, and we had this folder images here. In fact, we can create a new folder, movies, and then put the playblasts there, and then if we do renders, they go into images. So we're gonna call this RG for Rocket Girl 001.mov. Make sure that the extension that you put is the same extension that will come out from this container. Otherwise, you'll end up with double extensions and stuff that's not cool. And then audio has to be set for it to actually come out. So let's be a little bit more clever than we were before. And now if I just go into like solid mode and then view render animation, viewport render animation, by the way, right click and add to quick favorites, because we're going to use that a lot. And remember to also do this in pose mode, because pose mode is different than object mode. Then you need to do it in both of them, so it appears no matter what. I don't think there's like a setting to tell it just appear everywhere. So let's do this, and then viewport render animation. You see now it's way faster, and then view animation. So now we can hear it with the Blender player. We're still not gonna go into blocking. One of the things I like to do with my setup, for instance, first, I already use the camera stuff. So we're gonna organize our scene a little bit. So the crane rig and all of this, select hierarchy, and I'm going to put it in a new collection. Actually, not a new collection. I'm gonna put it in cinematography collection. That's where it goes. And as you can see, like the crane camera now it's out, so I need to select the hierarchy again, make sure that everything goes there. Now it's all in that collection. Good. And so that way also I can hide it, and the camera and that stuff doesn't need to be even on for us to be able to look through the camera, which is great. So it doesn't need to be in your viewport. Then these widgets, they can hide, and then the rocket rig should get its own collection. And so we got a little bit more organization there and everything is more clear. So that's one thing. Then on our viewport, what we want is we probably won't use the ship until the end, so we can actually just go and turn off the rig so we don't see it. Another thing is that the composition guides that we created for the camera, which I clearly didn't follow very well because she's out of there. I think I moved her at some point or whatever. I'm just going to grab the camera rig, point it again where it should go. And as you can see, I'm having a hard time selecting it. If I click here, now it's in pose mode as well, and so I can easily point it where it should. Again, we'll turn off the camera stuff, that way it's not in the scene. Here, what else do we need? Okay, so we got our layout one. This is the one I use mostly for animation. And then in the animation one, I usually want to have a few more things. I normally don't need to have two viewports. I don't prefer it, mostly because I'm used to having really slow rigs at work. And so I usually just change from moving around to going back to the camera, moving around again to going back to the camera, and so on. I do this often. Also, if you render in Blender, then it will always come out from the camera anyways. Not to say that it happens with this, like render it, then you get from whatever angle that you're looking at. So be mindful of just jumping back to your camera and then doing that. Cool. Another thing is, because we're going to be working with lip sync, you want to be able to look at your waveform. And so Blender doesn't have any particular special way to do that. What I personally like to do is I open up a little piece right down here with a video sequence editor, VSE, where is it? Video editor. And as you can see, I already have this guy here because it's part of the same scene. So, and then I can just make him bigger, as big as I want. And then just make sure that I'm viewing the waveforms. And then I have kind of like an eagle eye view of my timeline, which is this one here. And then I got my regular timeline with, for instance, my dope sheet, which is what I'll probably end up putting here. So I'll get my dope sheet here, my camera, this and that. And also you can make sure that you lock them all. You can sync visible range and sync it here as well. Where was it? Sync visible range. And so they move together. You probably don't want that with this one. You want to keep that one on its own, so you don't have to move it. Or you can sync it as well. So we got our timeline there. It's a little bit more comfy like this. Just hide the timeline because the only thing I really need from the timeline is the buttons, and I'll mostly work with the dope sheet and also with the graph editor, which I'll switch with Control Tab. And so you can just like go. The reason I want to keep this timeline around is because I have my keying sets here, the new keyframe types, the playback settings, which will allow me to, for instance, turn on scrubbing. It's not great. Maybe I'm being too low, too slow, too fast. Doesn't seem great to me. I haven't used scrubbing in Blender for so long. Then playback, you can limit the header to the playback range, so you can't go outside of the boundaries. Boom. So other things that we need to set up beforehand, keying. So as I was saying before, You have the key insets here. And if you want it to behave like in Maya, for instance, you go active key inset, location, rotation, and scale. And because we also in the preference set it to auto keying to work only on the previously keyed things on the available, then it's basically good to go. Now if I create, like if I move this around, nothing will happen. If I move this around, nothing will happen. If I press I, because I selected that, now I get the keyframes in the 3 properties. But we come out to another big problem, which is these colors, which is these stupid bone group colors, which kind of translate to the dope sheet and the graph editor, which we don't want. So we'll go view, and then show group colors is off. And if I go to the graph editor, same deal, show group colors should be off. And another thing that I really like in the graph editor is to go view only selected curve keyframes, because that's gonna behave slightly more like a other software's graph editor, where you select a channel and then you can only handle those keyframes and select another channel and only handle those keyframes. Because what this does is basically it's still showing them all, but the difference is it just filters them by selected one, and that makes it a little bit easier. I hope that was useful. I know there's a bunch of information there. Let me know in the comments below if there was something you didn't know or something else that you think I was missing that could have been done easily. And yeah, next up, we import a reference and we get unblocking. So I did not forget. I'm gonna make it as short and sweet as I can. Basically, I have 2 little announcements that I'm really excited about. One of them, I'm currently recording and working on this introduction to animation in Blender course. Hopefully it will be done and released by Christmas time, like holidays. And yeah, it's gonna be a 7-hour more or less course. We're going to take you from the basics, from bouncing balls and really nothing, to a full walk cycle where you'll learn step by step how to do everything. We're gonna talk about the principles of animation, obviously. We're gonna talk about cinema, and we'll end up doing a bunch of exercises to get you to the point that you understand enough of animation so you can take the next step. It's not a full-on animation mentor kind of thing. It's an introductory course for those of you that are looking into getting into animation but don't know where to start. I think this would be a very cool course, so I'm really excited about it. Number 2 is about 3 years ago I came up with a couple of ideas to make some short films, and one of them has progressed a lot this year. We're getting to the point that we have a story that works. Also, I've teamed up with a good friend of mine, Marion Strunk, and she's an animator and an art director as well, and she's top notch. So go check her Instagram out. She's got like a really nice Instagram full of gorgeous designs, and we want to make this film in a sort of open way where at some point we can start sharing the assets. So when the film is done, you can also play with the characters, the environments, and everything. So yeah, those are the 2 news. I'm super excited. Hope you're excited as I am. And remember to like and subscribe, and see me next time.